I'd now like to call to stage a new friend, Ira Block. Ira was introduced to me by a common friend. He's been a National Geographic photographer for many years, and as part of setting some context and some immersion, the team at New World Center refers to the sails, the screens up here as sails. They provide immersion into a concept, vision, etc. And so as part of that, we asked Ira for some of his favorite images, and they will be cycling during breaks and at various other times during the program. So with that, I'd like to welcome to stage Ira Block.
Thanks, Rob. I'm going to talk a little bit about two places that are relevant to this meeting. In 1997, National Geographic magazine sent me to Cuba for the first time. There was no internet, no cell phones, limited landline service, and very few restaurants. I've seen and photographed dramatic changes both culturally and economically in my subsequent trips over the last 20 years. Let's see. Okay, yeah, because it's not showing up there, okay. This Shea mural in Havana has been defaced. 5 years ago, no Cuban would dare express anything negative about the government, especially a national hero like Che Guevara. Freedom of expression, especially in art and dance, is making its way into Cuban life. And of course, the internet is a driving force in this. I recall last December, a few days before I was leaving Havana, my local assistant told me that Wi-Fi was being turned on in the local parks. Prior to that, digital information came to few people fortunate enough to have a computer via delivery of hard drives from Miami that were duplicated and distributed across the island via bicycles, buses, and horses to people's homes. Change is also coming to sports in Cuba. A couple of years ago, I started a project about Cuba and baseball and the cultural force that both have with each other. Baseball in Cuba is still a pure sport, and it's real. It's not the big business it is here in the US and in Japan. I was photographing a women's softball team when I noticed a young boy sitting on this wall, and the image of the young boy and the old scoreboard, to me, made for a picture that told a story of the old and the new, and showed the continuum of baseball in Cuba. And for those baseball fans here in the audience, the oldest professional baseball stadium in the world is not Wrigley Field nor Fenway Park, but it's a stadium in Matanzas, Cuba. The first game was played there in 1874. This pure sport of baseball is going to be changing. In December, Major League Baseball made a goodwill trip to Cuba, and the Cuban government allowed some of the Cuban baseball defectors to return. Here's Yasiel Puig of the Los Angeles Dodgers, one of the high-profile defectors. He's working with some local kids offering coaching tips in a stadium in Havana. A harbinger of the change was that the event was totally controlled by Major League Baseball. My Cuban friends from the Ministry of Sport were now taking orders in their own country from US baseball officials. Like Cuba, the country of Myanmar is in rapid change. Earlier this year, I spent 6 weeks teaching photo workshops in the country and saw changes in this complicated nation. This is a photo of a real fisherman on Inlay Lake. He earned his money catching fish. However, the overhead of a motorized boat and the cost of fuel eat into the small profits he makes. It's interesting that other fishermen have found a way to make more money, and that's as being performers. They wait for tourist boats to appear in the lake and put on an acrobatic show, balancing on their boats using their paddles and their conical fishing nets for support. They can make more money getting tourist tips than they can as fishermen. When I put this image and caption on my Instagram account, I got some odd comments from people saying how sad it was to see these fishermen becoming performers. But if they can make more money and have a better life by not fishing, then why not? The balance of cultural integrity and personal economics is a constant struggle in any new world. At a first new moon festival in January, which is a Buddhist religious event, the country's most popular heavy metal band was scheduled to perform, which was quite an interesting fact considering it was a religious event. The evening prior to the performance, young people were out on the streets taking photos of the stage and the lighting check. It was something different for them to do. For these young girls, that night was a big event. Just being able to get out, take selfies of themselves in front of this lighting check on the stage, they were able to do something out of the routine, something totally a distraction. Between the 11th and 13th century, Bagan had over 10,000 temples. It was a spiritual center for Burma. The 25 temples that have survived the ages are no longer primarily religious centers. They are now tourist attractions. Tourism in Myanmar affects the indigenous cultures both economically and socially. And entrepreneurs have taken it one step further, balloon rides over these historic structures. The cost for a 1-hour flight, about $300. At this price, very few locals have ever seen the temples from above. But tourism can be a positive force. It has fostered an exchange of ideas and exposure to the outside world, which has contributed to the rapid changes that this nation is now experiencing. And just as these worlds are changing, so is mine. Technology has allowed me to share photos of diverse cultures with my 250,000 social media followers. And many of them are young people in developing nations. My photos are opening up a new world for them. Thank you.
Thanks for spending your time with us, Ira. I hope you enjoy the visuals. The comment that Ira made about the balance between cultural integrity and economic prosperity is a challenging one. We should not be too quick to judge.